She just made history. And within minutes, the internet turned on her. One night, one player, two completely different stories being told about the same person. On one side, a record book being rewritten. On the other, thousands of fans online calling her a fraud, an actress, a flop queen. How can both of these things be true at the same time? Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you're going to understand exactly why Caitlin Clark cannot seem to win, even when she wins. It was a Sunday night in Las Vegas. The kind of night that felt ordinary at first. A regular season game between the Indiana Fever and the Las Vegas Aces. Nothing about the schedule suggested this would be a night anyone would remember. But basketball has a funny way of hiding its biggest moments inside its quietest ones. To understand what happened that night, you have to rewind a little. You have to understand what Caitlin Clark had already been through just to get to that court. This was not a smooth season for her. Not even close. She had already missed multiple games because of a lingering back injury, an injury that just would not fully go away. It's the kind of injury that doesn't necessarily knock you out for good, but it nags at you. It flares up. It makes you question every movement, every twist, every fall. She had already sat out several games earlier in the year. She had come back, only to be sidelined again. Her own coach had to manage her playing time like she was handling fragile cargo because in a way, she was the face of a franchise, the face of an entire league's growth, wrapped in a body that kept sending warning signals. And here's what most people don't talk about enough. Last year, in 2025, Clark's season had been cut brutally short. She played in just 13 games before injuries shut her down for the rest of the year. 13 games. For a player carrying that much weight on her shoulders, that number stings. So when the 2026 season began, every single game she played felt like it was being watched under a microscope. Would she make it through the season this time? Would her body hold up? Every fan, every commentator, every rival team was quietly asking the same question. By the time this game in Las Vegas arrived, Clark had already missed 4 games that season. She had played through minutes restrictions in her most recent appearances, meaning her coaching staff was deliberately limiting how long she stayed on the court, trying to protect her, trying to manage the risk. Even when she was healthy enough to play, she wasn't fully unleashed. Imagine being one of the most electric, most watched athletes in your sport, and having to hold yourself back game after game because your own body is negotiating with you in real time. Her numbers had dipped a little too. In her 2 appearances leading into this game, she was shooting under 40% from the field. Her scoring had dropped. Her rebounds had dropped. This wasn't the explosive, logo 3-hitting version of Clark that fans fell in love with. This was a version of her fighting through discomfort, trying to find rhythm again, trying to trust her own body. So when she stepped onto the court that Sunday night against the Aces, there was a tension in the air that most casual fans wouldn't even notice. This wasn't just another game. This was a test. Could she still be herself? Could she still be the player who changes the way a room watches basketball? The Aces were no easy opponent either. This was a team led by one of the most dominant players in WNBA history. A team that had tasted championships before. A team that doesn't fold just because a big name walks onto their home floor. If Clark and the Fever wanted to make a statement, they would have to earn it against real resistance, not a soft target. From the opening minutes, something felt different. The Fever came out with an intensity that suggested they weren't there to simply survive the night. They were there to dominate it. And leading that charge wasn't just Clark. It was her teammate, Kelsey Mitchell, who quietly, game after game, has become one of the most consistent scorers in the league without always getting the spotlight she deserves. That night, Mitchell put on a show. She dropped 27 points, and in doing so, she reached a career milestone that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. It was her 38th double-digit scoring game, a franchise record. Think about that. Game after game, night after night, showing up and delivering double-digit numbers so consistently that she rewrote her own franchise's history books. While all eyes were on Clark, Mitchell was building her own legacy in the background, brick by brick. But the story of this game wasn't only about scoring. It was about vision. It was about the quiet art of making everyone else around you better. And that's where Clark's story that night truly begins. As the game unfolded, The Fever's offense started to click in a way that felt almost effortless. Passes were finding their targets. Cuts were being rewarded. The ball was moving with a rhythm that comes only when a team trusts each other completely. And every time the ball moved through Clark's hands, something good seemed to happen for Indiana. Midway through the game, something happened that most fans in the arena didn't even realize the significance of in real time. Clark delivered another assist, a routine-looking pass that led to a bucket. On the stat sheet, it was just another number. But in the history books, it was anything but ordinary. That assist marked her 600th career assist. And here's the part that makes it truly remarkable. She reached that number faster than any player in the history of the league. Let that sink in for a moment. 600 assists. Not points. Not highlight dunks. Assists. The purest form of basketball generosity. The stat that measures how much a player elevates everyone around her rather than just herself. And she did it faster than anyone who has ever played this game professionally at this level. Think about what that actually means. It means that from the very first days she stepped onto a professional court, she wasn't just there to score. She was there to see the floor differently than everyone else. To find the extra pass. To make the extra read. 600 times, she looked up, found a teammate in the perfect position, and delivered the ball with the kind of precision that turns a good possession into 2 points. 600 times, faster than every single player before her. For a player who had spent the past several weeks fighting through a nagging injury, playing with restrictions, trying to trust a body that kept betraying her, this milestone hit differently. It wasn't just a number. It was proof. Proof that even while compromised, even while hurting, even while playing under caution, her basketball mind was still operating on a level nobody else in the league could touch. The game continued to unfold in Indiana's favor. By the final buzzer, the scoreboard told a story of complete domination. The Fever walked away with a commanding victory, winning 109-75. A 34-point margin against a team with championship pedigree. That is not a close game. That is not a game decided by a lucky bounce or a controversial call. That is a team imposing its will from start to finish. For a moment, everything seemed to be aligning into the kind of story that sports fans love. The underdog narrative of a player fighting through injury, finally breaking through. The historic milestone. The dominant team win. The record-setting teammate performance. It had all the ingredients of a feel-good headline. A story about resilience. A story about greatness quietly building itself back up after adversity. But basketball, like life, rarely lets a story stay simple for long. Because earlier in that very same game, something else had happened. Something that would completely hijack the conversation the moment the final buzzer sounded. During a physical sequence in the game, Clark went down to the floor after contact with one of the Aces' veteran guards. It happened fast. One moment she was moving through a play, the next moment she was on the ground, appearing to be in discomfort. The officials reviewed the contact. They looked at it from multiple angles. And in the end, they ruled that it did not rise to the level of a flagrant foul. Now, here's where things get complicated. Because in professional sports, especially in a league as passionate and online as the WNBA has become, a single moment like that can spiral into something much bigger than the play itself. Almost instantly, clips of the fall started circulating. Fans who had already formed strong opinions about Clark, opinions shaped by months of debate about her media attention, her popularity, and her impact on the league's business side, jumped on the moment. Comment sections filled up with accusations. People calling it exaggerated. People mocking the reaction. People bringing back a nickname that has followed her through parts of this rivalry all season, calling her, sarcastically, the flop queen. Think about the whiplash of that moment. In the very same game where she becomes the fastest player in league history to reach 600 assists, a genuine, undeniable, record-breaking achievement, the loudest conversation afterward wasn't about the milestone at all. It was about whether she flopped on a foul call. Why does this keep happening to her? Why does it feel like no matter what she accomplishes, there's always a wave of criticism ready to drown it out? To understand that, you have to understand the unique position Clark occupies in this league. She isn't just a player. She has become, whether she asked for it or not, a symbol. A symbol of the league's explosive growth. A symbol of a new generation of fans tuning in. A symbol that some longtime fans feel has been given attention that hasn't always been earned purely on the court, in their eyes at least. And symbols attract extremes. They attract devoted support, and they attract equally intense resentment. Every whistle that goes her way gets magnified. Every whistle that goes against her gets magnified too, but in the opposite direction. If she gets fouled and no call is made, critics say the officials are protecting her narrative by not overreacting. If she gets fouled and a call is made in her favor, critics say she's being given star treatment. If she falls to the ground in genuine pain, some fans see a competitor who has taken real physical punishment all season, punishment that has led to actual back injuries, actual missed games, actual medical restrictions on her playing time. Other fans see performance, exaggeration, an attempt to draw sympathy. The truth, as it usually is, probably sits somewhere in the uncomfortable middle. Professional athletes do sometimes sell contact to draw a whistle. That's not unique to any one player. It happens across every major sport, in every league, at every level. But it's also true that Clark has dealt with legitimate, documented physical issues this season. A real back injury that forced her to miss real games. Minutes restrictions that were not manufactured for headlines, but recommended by medical and coaching staff trying to protect her long-term health. You don't get benched by your own coaching staff for a fake injury. You don't sit out multiple games because of a narrative. Something real has been happening to her body this season. So when she goes down on a hard play and the internet immediately assumes performance rather than pain, it says less about her and more about how quickly people are willing to believe the worst about someone they've already decided to dislike. And that's the deeper story hiding underneath this single game. It's not really about one fall. It's not really about one foul call. It's about the impossible standard that has been placed on her since the moment she entered this league. A standard where greatness isn't enough. Where records aren't enough. Where 600 assists faster than any player in history isn't enough to earn a night of pure celebration without controversy attached to it. Think about the athletes throughout history who have faced the same dynamic. The ones who become so big, so central to their sport's growth, that they stop being judged simply as competitors and start being judged as symbols of something larger. Every mistake gets amplified. Every success gets scrutinized for whether it was truly earned. It's an exhausting, unfair spotlight, but it's also, in a strange way, a confirmation of just how much impact that person has had. You don't get this level of obsessive attention, positive or negative, unless you've fundamentally changed the landscape around you. And make no mistake, Clark has changed the landscape. Television ratings tell that story clearly. Attendance numbers tell that story clearly. The sheer volume of conversation, debate, and yes, controversy surrounding her every single game tells that story clearly. Whether people love her or resent her, they are watching. They are talking. They're clicking on videos just like the one you're watching right now, because her name alone generates a level of curiosity that very few athletes in this league's history have ever produced. So, where does this leave us after that night in Las Vegas? A dominant win. A historic milestone. A record set faster than anyone before her. And, once again, a wave of online mockery threatening to overshadow all of it. Here's what's remarkable, though. She didn't respond to the noise. She didn't get pulled into a public back and forth about the flopping accusations. She let the box score speak. 600 assists. Fastest ever. A 34-point win on the road against a championship-caliber team. Those numbers don't care what the comment section says. Those numbers sit permanently in the record books, untouched by hashtags, untouched by mockery, untouched by whatever nickname critics want to attach to her that week. And this is where her story becomes something bigger than basketball. It becomes a lesson about resilience in the face of constant noise. Because imagine trying to perform at an elite level, night after night, while carrying a genuine injury, while facing minutes restrictions, while knowing that every single move you make on the court is going to be dissected, debated, and possibly mocked regardless of the outcome. Most people would crumble under that pressure. Most people would let the criticism seep into their performance, seep into their confidence. Instead, she kept doing the one thing that silences noise better than any argument ever could. She kept setting records. She kept making the extra pass. She kept elevating her teammates, like Kelsey Mitchell, who's now etched into her own franchise's history thanks in part to the trust and vision Clark brings to every possession. As the days following that Las Vegas game rolled forward, the Fever didn't get to simply bask in the milestone. The schedule doesn't slow down for celebration. Just days later, they were preparing to return home and face a fresh wave of opponents, a stretch of games against teams like the Golden State Valkyries, the Seattle Storm, and the New York Liberty. Every one of those games would bring new tests, new physical challenges, and inevitably, new opportunities for both praise and criticism to follow her. Because that's the reality of being Caitlin Clark in this era of the league. There is no quiet night. There is no game where she simply plays and walks away unnoticed. Every performance is a headline waiting to be written, whether that headline celebrates her brilliance or questions her authenticity. But if this Las Vegas game teaches us anything, it's this. The scoreboard, the record book, the box score, those don't lie, and they don't care about narratives. They simply record what happened. And what happened that night was this. A player who had spent weeks fighting through pain, fighting through restrictions, fighting through doubt, stepped onto the floor and became the fastest player in the history of her league to reach 600 assists. That is not something manufactured by hype. That is not something created by marketing. That is a cold, hard, undeniable basketball fact. The flopping debate will fade, as these debates always do, replaced by the next controversial moment, the next viral clip, the next thing for fans to argue about online. But 600 assists, achieved faster than anyone in league history, that stays. That's permanent. That's the kind of thing that gets referenced years from now, long after this particular controversy has been forgotten by everyone except the most dedicated fans who remember every detail. So the next time you see her name trending for a controversial reason, remember what's usually sitting quietly underneath that noise.
A milestone.
A record. A moment of genuine basketball greatness that got drowned out because outrage travels faster than appreciation ever will online. And maybe that's the real story here. Not about flopping, not about fouls, not about whether one fall was real or exaggerated. The real story is about how difficult it has become for even the most extraordinary achievements to get the clean, uncomplicated celebration they deserve in today's world. Everything gets attached to something else. Every triumph gets paired with a controversy. Every record gets an asterisk of debate hovering around it before the ink even dries. But records don't need permission to matter. They simply exist, etched permanently into history, regardless of how loud the surrounding noise becomes. And on that Sunday night in Las Vegas, regardless of what anyone online decided to call her afterward, Caitlin Clark did something no player in the history of her league had ever done before her. She got there first. She got there fastest. And no amount of noise can ever take that away. As the season rolls forward, one thing seems certain. Every time she steps onto that court, history is being written in real time, whether the headlines choose to focus on it or not. The question isn't whether she'll keep making moments like this. The question is whether the noise around her will ever quiet down long enough for people to simply watch and appreciate what they're witnessing. Because whether you love her, whether you doubt her, whether you believe every fall is real or question every whistle that goes her way, one fact remains untouched by any of that debate. 600 assists. Faster than anyone. Ever. And that is history that no controversy can erase.